Good evening, Dr. Steffi, and
Hello.
hello. And my name is Akash. I'm from ZenOnco.io and Love Heals Cancer. And we are very happy to have you with us on board for this Marrow Awareness Month initiative.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So before we start, let me give yourself an introduction to everyone. Dr. Steffi Mac is a leukemia survivor and the founder of the Marrow Story. She was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, an aggressive type of blood cancer, at the age of 24, and needed to do a bone marrow transplant at the earliest. She was lucky enough to find a perfect match from a Turkish lady based in Germany. After returning to her everyday life, she realized the importance of awareness on bone marrow transplant and the necessity of more people coming forward to become donors. She became the Goodwill Ambassador of Datri, India's biggest bone marrow registry, and founded the Marrow Story. Thank you for being with us today as part of the Marrow Awareness Month.
Thank you.
The brave soul
Thank
here,
you.
yes, and we really appreciate that you taking your time out from the schedule and joining us today.
Oh, no, you don't have to thank me at all. Anything for ZenOnco, and you guys have been doing a marvelous job, and ZenOnco has been my inspiration to do whatever I have been doing. It has played an important role. So, congratulations to you guys.
Oh, thank you. That is very sweet coming from a survivor herself. So, yes. So, could you please tell us about the Marrow Story?
Mm-hmm. So, after I was done with my bone marrow transplant and I gradually sort of got back to life, so to say, I think I cannot say that I'm speaking for every survivor, but at least in my case, this was true that the moment I was told that I could say, go back to a normal life, I sort of just plunged into it because I think that was a desperate attempt. I had missed on about a year and a half of my life, more in recovery than in the treatment, because the treatment was just for about 6 months, inclusive of chemotherapy as well as the transplant. But it's the recovery that took really long. So I sort of just plunged into it, so much so that I just went after all my dreams and goals and just wanted to accomplish them really quickly, because to me there was this clock running in my head that I've already lost a year and a half and I cannot lose any more time. So, PhD bhi kar lo, or get a job also, the kind of job that you want, and start teaching and do this and that. So everything I wanted to do at the same time. And I think I ran after my dreams so fast that I completely shut out my experience as a cancer patient and a survivor, because I just did not want to deal with that at that point in time. I published a book about it, and I believe that was it. I didn't pursue it after that. Somewhere at the back of my mind, I knew that I wanted to do something constructive, and whether it's at a big stage or a smaller or at a smaller platform, it doesn't matter. But something that actually helps people understand what is BMT. But I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I had so much. It's only in 2019, and I think in June or July 2019, when this idea sort of began to take shape. And this happened because in the last week of June 2019, I was given the kind opportunity to deliver a TEDx talk. And when that happened, the first thought I had in my head is, so I survived cancer. What's the big deal? So many people survive cancer, and so many people have survived much worse side effects that this disease has left, and they are still dealing with it. And as compared to that, nothing of that magnitude has happened to me. I cannot be talking about the fact that, Are dekho mujhe, I've survived cancer. I mean, even if I were not a cancer survivor, perhaps somewhere in my head I would have thought, okay, so what? Because now cancer is such a common disease in India. I was just reading the statistics last night. Would still be morning in India, I believe, where they were talking about, how many men and women are affected, etc., etc. And that's when I realized that if I really want to talk about something important at such a big platform that has been given to me, it has to be about bone marrow transplants. And if nothing else, it could be something educative, something that helps people understand what it is. So I did that. And it's in the course of my research that I think everything just started coming back to me in full force. What I had been through, what treatment I had got. And I think that's when I actually understood the magnitude of what I had been through and what I had survived. Because for me, the process was so easy by the grace of God and by everybody's prayers and blessings that I managed to get a donor really soon. And my research taught me that it's not that easy. It doesn't happen to everyone this easily. And so after the transplant, I met people at Datri. They reached out to me. Sorry, after the TEDx talk, and they said, why can't we do something together? And I said, okay, great. I really want people to register, and you want someone who can help you to get more registration. So I said, fine, I'll be more than happy to help you. I got on board, and then of course we did a number of drives, most of those at the colleges and universities where I was teaching, because we wanted as young donors as we could get. So I did that, and then COVID happened, of course, and everything just sort of came to an absolute standstill. I had all of these other universities to speak at the, in the pipeline, and then it just vanished. And I thought, no, this is a momentum and I cannot stop it. And then one fine day, I just called up people at Datri and I said, well, do you have any people who would like to talk to me and they've donated their marrow, or they have received marrow from somebody, and even a sibling, and they would like to share their experiences? So they said, yes, we have many people who would like to do that. So I thought, okay, if I have to convince people to donate their marrow, because the one thing that was happening to me all the time when I was speaking to people about donating their marrow was, okay, we get your side of the story, that we can really save a life and you are the living example of that, but we want to speak with someone who has donated the marrow. What is their experience like? What happens to them? Does it hurt? Is it a surgery? Do we get stitches? Does it affect our health adversely? So many questions, and I was not the right person to answer it, because for me also it was just about interacting with my donor and finding out how it was for her. And well, it's always good to hear from the horse's mouth. So I thought, okay, great, let's just do this. And I don't know, for some reason, it just happened to me. I thought, okay, I'm just going to come up with one name, and I'm going to look for that name at GoDaddy and find out if there is a website available. I'm going to type that name on Instagram and see if a handle is available. Facebook page was not essentially a problem. So I thought, okay, let's just go with the Marrow Story. And it just so happened that there was no handle, no website, no Facebook page, nothing that had this name, and it just sort of sat with me. I thought, okay, this is unique. This talks about what I want to do, and so that's how it started. And I think I have interviewed close to um, 55 people so far. These include marrow donors, these include bone marrow transplant survivors, these include other cancer survivors as well, individuals who had other sorts of cancers, and they have managed to get through it. This is also talking about friends and families who have lost their loved ones to this disease. We also did a special series on people who have had mental health challenges with depression, people who are still living with depression, people who are struggling and fighting with depression every day. So we've done a number of series because I thought that is important for such people to voice their opinions, because this is the only way I thought I could normalize conversations around bone marrow donation, transplant, cancer, depression, mental health, everything. So that's the Marrow story.
Yeah, so the real change happens after people start coming out with it, normalizing.
Exactly, which is still a challenge, but I'm trying. I think it has unfortunately it has slowed down since the past 40 days, courtesy me moving to a different country. But I'm really now trying to sort of get hold the reins back and put things in order and kickstart things again. The biggest challenge is to convince people to come up and talk. So there have been incidents in the past where I have published a story, and the said individual has not informed his or her friends and family. Friends, yes; family, not so much. And then the family is found out, and then they've requested me, "कि नहीं नहीं आप इसे निकाल दो, please take this down," and we don't want our relatives to know. Or I've had people who've approached me and said, I really want to publish this, but I don't want my family to find out. Or can you publish this but not put up my picture? And the only reason I insist on pictures is otherwise, if I just publish a story, who's going to believe that this is a real person? There's always a question. So if there is a face with the story, then at least people are going to trust in the fact that, okay, this is coming from a real person. So I do face these challenges off and on. And it's difficult because there are these people who really do want to talk, but there's pressure from the family. And I don't really blame anybody here because we live in a society where cancer is a taboo. So what are you to do about it? So I'm also trying to de-taboo cancer, if that's a word, but it's difficult.
You should know better if that's a word. You have a doctor in English, I suppose. Yeah.
I think I'll invent it. De-taboo is a word.
Yeah. So yeah, even we've too had many survivors demanding that please don't put my real name. I'll use an alias, and yeah, my family knows, but my society doesn't know, the society where I live in. So
Yeah.
yes, so I think it will really help if people start talking, and the more we normalize it, the more people will be aware, and the more we can push people onto early detection and early diagnosis.
Exactly. Also, I've had people who've come up and told me that, please don't mention my name because my parents are still looking for a bride or a groom for me. I am yet to be married. And if this comes out in my community, I won't get married. And to me, it's saddening. I don't have any other words. It's heartbreaking that people would judge an individual on the basis of their health record, and these are not just, uh, you know, I mean, the fact that people would identify with an individual on the basis of their health record or not see them for anything else, their heart, their humanity, their professions, their careers, their ambitions, the fact that they could survive this is it's shocking, but I won't say it's surprising. I have seen enough to know that it happened in my case too. So it's not surprising, but I think it's going to take at least another 50 years to a century for this to change. I don't
Yes.
see that happening. I can only make that much of a change. If I have other 50 people join me, then it can escalate to, say, in the next 15, 20 years. So we just have to build the next generation to know better.
Yes, earlier I was talking to a doctor and he said, all that I'm doing, it's only a drop in the ocean, but the drop surely does contribute to the ocean. So, like you said, in a century.
It's just that, yes.
So the Marrow story happened after you've been in touch with Datri.
Yes, the Marrow story happened after I got in touch with Datri, but the Marrow story was literally just something that maybe was lurking around in the background as far as my life story is concerned. But I never really brought it to the front seat. I couldn't really focus on it. And then when the lockdown was announced, of course, back then I was actively working and I had too many sessions to look after, and all of us were struggling as teaching faculties with the online system, not so much with the technology, at least with most of us, but more in terms of how are you to manage the batches online, etc., etc. So that really hogged all day, because when you have to teach online, then you have to think of creative ways to engage the students. Otherwise, they're just going to keep the screen there and walk away. So I was too busy doing that. The moment all my sessions were done and we were done for that winter semester, that's when I suddenly thought, okay, ab main kya karu? Like I don't have anything else to do right now, and how much am I going to read, and what can I do? And then it just came to the front, and it just said, I think my whole experience just went like, now can you look at me and do something about it? And I thought, okay, let's do something. And frankly speaking, all of this was just conceptualized in 2 hours. And I just happened to call a dear friend from Datri, and I said that, this is what I want to do, and I need your help with it, because I don't know any people who have donated their marrow apart from my donor. And I said, I do not want to publish her story first, because I thought it again, then the Marrow story would become about me, and I did not want this to become about me. I wanted it to become about the people who are going to be there. So I said, I don't want to publish about my donor right now. I think all people who know me, and all people who know the people who know me, also know about me. So I said, enough people know about me. So I said, I don't want this to be about me. You have to help me. And I want to publish stories about Indian people. And I'm emphasizing on Indian because India is my target. Uh, with this bigger population, and I mentioned that in my TED talk, that research says, and this is legit research, okay, that if any one major city from India had every person between the age group of 18 to 55 who signed up to donate their marrow with any registry that is functioning in India, we will build the largest marrow registry in the world. And I'm just talking about one city. So you take Delhi, or you take Bombay, or you take Ahmedabad, or you take Kolkata, you take Bangalore, any city, any major city in this country, Chennai, and have every person between the age group of 18 to 55 with whatever, with no underlying health conditions, nothing as serious as diabetes, where you have to take an insulin, for example. In that case, we can build the largest marrow registry in the world. And when I found this out for my TED talk, I was stunned. I thought, यार ये तो मुश्किल नहीं होना चाहिए, but apparently मुश्किल है, बहुत मुश्किल है. So that's how it is.
Also, I think there are some myths related to being a living donor when it comes to marrow.
I think the issue is that when we talk about donation, we understand blood donation very well, but I believe that sometime in the 70s, 80s, not so much the 90s, but maybe halfway there, even blood donation was frowned upon. I remember relatives telling each other, "Ke, "Arey, nahi, khoon mat do, like, don't donate your blood. Your blood is going to be lesser, and then you will faint. And why do you want to do that? And you don't know what syringe or needle they are using." And it was frowned upon. It wasn't something that people did willingly. We did it to save anyone in an unfortunate accident or circumstance. We know. So if there's someone from friends or family, then we'll rush to donate our blood. Very typically Bollywood, आप मेरा खून का एक एक कतरा ले लो, but इसे बचा दो, kind of a thing. But you will not do it for a stranger. Now I know people who've donated their blood over 100 times. I know people who've donated their plasma over 100 times, or platelets over 100 times. I watched this video that was done by the Tata Memorial Hospital that covered about this gentleman who had donated his platelets close to over 100 times. And I was stunned. I was, of course, it was heartwarming to see that. And I think that at least in India right now, that is the 70s or 80s mentality that we hold with a bone marrow. And it's going to take a while for us to mentally bring our society into the 90s and the early 2000s, and then of course to where we are today with blood and plasma and platelets. So I think that's what it is. Plasma donation has really started picking up pace, or it did started picking that kind of pace when COVID-19 shot up in our country, and the survivors started donating their plasma in order to help the ones who had critically who been affected by the virus. So I think people have now sort of found this comfort zone with plasma. People have started understanding what are platelets, because of what do you say that because of dengue. So people know enough about platelets. People know enough about blood donation. अब तो blood donation camps college campus पे बहुत easily होते हैं. Everyone is donating their blood. Kids are donating their blood. So that's okay. Doesn't happen with bone marrow. So I guess with bone marrow, what's happening is people suddenly begin to think this is like an organ donation. So it's like donating your kidney or a portion of your liver, or it's like it's like donating your eyes. So many people have told me that so I sign up, and then after I die, my marrow is extracted and given to the patient, right? So I said, no, that's not how it works. So then they will say, oh, so I am still alive, and then they are sort of going to cut me open and then remove my marrow and then give it to the patient. And I'm like, no. The first thing to know about bone marrow transplant is that a bone marrow transplant is not a surgery. It happens to be one of those very rare kinds of transplants where there is no surgery. Of course, um, this is true for stem cell donation, not so much for the one where you do ask the doctor to extract the marrow from your bone, from the bone that produces the marrow, which is somewhere in your lower back. In that case, of course, you will have to ask the doctors to sort of extract it. And I won't say it's a surgery, because it's not like that. It's not full-fledged, but at least of what I have understood in my limited knowledge as a person from arts and humanities, but someone who has been fairly exposed to this, is that with stem cell donations is exactly like your blood donation. So you're just given an injection that sort of increases the production of marrow in your body. And all you're doing is, just like you would donate your blood, there is a line in your hand, the marrow is extracted, and it is given to and it is collected in a bag, and the rest of the blood from the marrow is put back into your body. And because you are donating something that you have produced in extra, you're not losing on anything. And even if you were to donate your marrow from the bone in the lower back, even in that case, your body only takes about 4 to 6 weeks to produce all that marrow back into your body. So it's exactly like blood donation. And so many people told me also, okay, oh, tumhari surgery ho gayi, how is it? Are you able to walk? Have the stitches healed? And I had to tell them also that no, even for the recipient, it's exactly like receiving a blood transfusion. So all they did was, they put a line, in my hand, and the marrow was, transfused into my body. So it's exactly like that. So I think there are a number of myths that have to be busted about stem cell donation, and that's what it is. But it's going to happen, I think, one little talk at a time. That's how it is.
Yes. So like we have now for blood transfusion, mobile blood transfusion ambulances. I hope someday we too will have something for marrow.
Hopefully, I don't think it will be that fast, simply because marrow donation does require some longer time. I mean, I think it requires about an hour and a half. But if there are these mobile vans that can just go around, explain to people what it is, and get more people to sign up, I think that is a dream that can happen. So yeah, maybe at some stage we'll be able to operate at that level.
So how is it that organizations like Datri facilitate this marrow transplant?
So with
Matching
Datri,
with them.
what Datri has been doing is essentially this. Datri was founded way back in mid 90s, I believe, and it also started with this that the person who founded it happened to have a friend who needed a bone marrow donor, and the, what scientists or people who have been actively researching about bone marrow transplants have said is that um, there is always a stronger possibility of the patient or the one who's going to receive the transplant finding a matched donor within the same ethnic group. So even with Datri, when you fill out a form, there is this particular section that will ask you what community or what ethnic group do you belong to. So say for example, if I am Sindhi, then I must write Sindhi. Or if I am a Christian, then you can either write Christian, Protestant, or Anglican, or Catholic, or same goes with Hindu. Whether you are a Brahmin Hindu or a Vaishnav Hindu, or I mean, it's not about any form of subsection into religion or caste or any of those things. This is very community specific. Simply because what Datri says is that tomorrow, if we have somebody who comes to us and says that we need a bone marrow donor, and this is who we are, and this is the group that we belong to, Datri will first check its database within the same community. Because even Datri's research states that there is a higher possibility of finding people who have registered as marrow donors with them, who belong to the same community. I'm not saying that that is always true. For example, I am an Indian woman, Indian Catholic woman, and I happen to find my donor way in Germany, uh, who is ethnic group wise, she's Turkish. So she's a Turkish woman who's like brought up in Germany, and like she's miles away. Okay, it is that it's close to a 17-18 hour flight from from India. So it's not always true, but what I think after I was done with my treatment, and this has to be a couple of years ago, I read this article in one of these local newspapers that many Indians have found their donors in Germans for some reason, or especially in Turkish Germans. Apparently, there is something common in our genes, or God knows what. But there was some article I faintly remember reading about it. So that is the thing. And what Datri essentially does is that it collaborates with corporates, it collaborates with colleges and universities, it has its set of volunteers, and then the representatives go there. They conduct this induction kind of a program or an orientation program where they explain the entire process to people, orient them into understanding कि ये चीज भी होती है, and this is completely non-profit. So they do that and they get people to understand, and then they register. And to register as a marrow donor is the easiest thing to do, because there are these two cotton swabs which are nothing but really long earbuds, if I have to give you a mental picture. And all they do is that they take it and they swab one side of your cheek, they put it in a plastic wrapper, and then they take another one and swab the other side of the cheek. So all they need is your saliva sample. And then they send it to the states. And what happens is there's an antigen test. So I have actually explained all of this. Sorry, not an antigen test, I'm sorry, it's an HLA match. Somewhere COVID is running in my head. There's an HLA typing that is done. And I've explained all of this in my TEDx talk. What is HLA? And because all of these are really big medical terms, and everyone seems to get lost in it, in that entire circus. So I've explained it. I've tried to simplify it as much as possible. And then these test results are entered in their records. So tomorrow, if I walk up to Datri and I say that, well, I'm losing time and I need someone to donate their marrow. Can you look up for my records? Then Datri will do that, because I will give my HLA reports to them, and they will enter it into their database, and then they will try and match it with the people who've already registered, and then they will find someone who is as close a match as possible. Reach out to that person and say that, well, we have somebody who is in an urgent need of your marrow and you can save their life, and you are a match. Are you ready to do it? So that's how the entire process works. In fact, when I needed a donor, when I was told that, Steffi, the only way you can get out of this cancer is by taking a BMT, my HLA was done, and Datri finds its, if I can say, Datri's home is Chennai. That's the first city it started operating out of. So, and I was taking my treatment at a small town close to Chennai. I took my treatment at CMC, which is one of the best in the country for a bone marrow transplant. So, I I remember the hospital sending my details to Datri, and unfortunately, Datri could not find a matched donor for me, because, in spite of the fact that Datri is the uh, biggest, bone marrow registry in our country, um, there aren't enough donors who have registered. And I got mine from Germany. So the thing is this, that uh, if I had found a donor in India, my treatment cost would have been much lower. And I'm just lucky and blessed that I belong to a family that could afford treatment this expensive, because the moment you find a donor outside your country, the foreign exchange rate is crazy, because you have to, the kind of uh, money just goes out, like, before you can even spell money, it's that fast. Which is why I kept insisting people that they must register as marrow donors in India, because if there is someone who can find a donor within the same country, the treatment expenses reduce drastically, drastically. It really helps your finances, and which is also a reason, apart from this is also a very important reason why people in India need to register, because I have seen families opt out of a bone marrow transplant, knowing that this is the only option to save their loved one, because they don't have those kind of funds. And having said that, yes, Prime Minister and Chief Minister funds are there, and they do work. Huh? I mean, you may criticize the government as much as you want for a number of reasons, but there are really good health plans that are available. But then what happens again is that these are available for people who really, really, really need that money, whose yearly income is much, much lower. And then in that case also, and I'm going to go on record and say this, I have seen people produce fake documents in order to claim all that government money, because they don't want to spend their money. And they don't want to spend their money because they have to save a girl child. If it's a male child, then they will spend their own money. So I have also seen a lot of gender discrimination when it comes to cancer treatment. कि बेटी के लिए क्या बोन मैरो ट्रांसप्लांट करना है, इतना पैसा क्यों खर्चा करना है. So that is also very important. I have there are too many layers um, to this. I've seen families opt out of chemotherapies and other expensive treatments just because they think, it's okay, it's a daughter. What's the point of spending so much after her? Ultimately, even if she recovers, there's no way we're going to be able to get her married. Who's going to marry her after this? So, ठीक है, जाने दो. If it's a son, it's not like that. Um, so
that is something I think I've never heard someone talk about that, about gender discrimination when it comes to cancer treatment.
In fact, I've mentioned it in my book as well. There was this lady. This guy happened to be like he happened to be like my cancer buddy, like my treatment buddy. He also had a aggressive form of blood cancer, and I also had one, and both of us needed a transplant. And he had four sisters. So four sisters, and then he was the fifth child, a son. And to someone like me, it was very obvious that why he is the last child, because I think the couple must have kept trying till they found a son, till they were blessed with a son, so to say. And this one time, his mom was talking to my mother, and she ended up telling my mother that I have four daughters. Why did the universe, or why did God choose to give this disease to my son? Couldn't it have, or couldn't God have given it to any one of my daughters? Why my son? She said that. And I've actually mentioned this in my book. So, we can talk about gender, and we can talk about equality, and we can talk about discrimination, to things that are naked, out in the open, things that are obvious to the naked eye, so to say. But at the grassroots level, when you go beyond the grassroots level, this is the reality. This is what is happening. So, these are also issues that we really need to address. I have seen parents who chose not to get a bone marrow transplant for their daughter who was struggling with thalassemia from the age of 2, and her growth is the child's growth is stunted. This girl is supposed to be 18 years old, but she looks like she's a 6-year old, because that's what happens. And parents have decided not to go ahead with it, in spite of the fact that doctors have been able to find out a donor for this child while the child was 4 or 5 years old, and it was imperative in her case, and yet they waited for this long till they managed to find people who were ready to donate, in spite of the fact that her father is a businessman, because he thought, well, it's a daughter, it's okay. And it just broke my heart. It was unbelievable. And I've seen these are all live examples. These are people I've spoken to every day. These are people I kept in touch with for a stipulated period of time after my recovery as well. But of course, they are never going to come to the forefront and talk about it, because all of us have been conditioned to accept it some way. As women, we will not question our parents. We will not question their choices, because we don't know enough to question their choices. We're not going to turn around and ask our mom and dad, why am I not important to you? Why don't you want to save me? Because we don't know enough about it. So that's the thing. To us, our parents will tell us, I'm sorry, we cannot afford the treatment, and that's the end of it. You have to just accept it and fight as much as you can fight. But then you realize, well, so maybe someday, if my Marrow story grows to the proportion that I want for it to grow, I think this is going to be my subsection that I really want to address, gender cases within this. I don't know. I think it's going to take a long time, but I think I've made up my mind to work as hard as possible to address some of these issues. So let's see.
Yeah, let's see. That is a good thing. And other than just a lot of people signing up for marrow donation, things like these are the ones that should be really addressed. Along with that,
I think there are two issues here. To be frank with you, Akash, the first one is that people should register. That is just in order to build a registry enough to generate options. I am not saying that tomorrow, if we have a registry that is big enough, it is still going to be enough to suffice the needs of every patient who needs a transplant, because there is still always going to be a possibility that it's not a match. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. But the point is that the more number of people who are on the registry, there is more hope and faith that we are generating for patients and their families. That no, there are people who are ready to do it, and there are people who are sincere about it, and there are people who will not back out, which is also very, very important. This is the one thing that Datri asked me to mention very clearly in all of these orientation and talks that I was giving to my students, encouraging them to sign up as marrow donors, was that promise that you will not back out. Because the moment Datri reaches out to you and says that you can really save somebody's life, and at that point in time, you could be 60, you could be 40, you could be 45, you could be 35, it could be tomorrow. Okay. And then if you say that, I'm sorry, my wife, my husband, my partner, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my parents, my relatives, they're not okay with it. Because the problem with India is that you don't only have to convince the donor, you also have to convince the donor's entire family. Okay, which I don't see happening here. So I've moved to Canada. I don't see it happening anywhere. I don't see it happening in Canada. I've been to Germany to meet my donor. I don't see happening there. Definitely not in the States. There, each individual has the right to do this. So the only argument that we put before you is that you are 18 and above to be able to legally register as a donor. So you can make your own decisions. If you can cast a vote to choose who should lead your country, then you can definitely do something in order to save somebody's life. But apparently, when it comes to saving the life of a stranger, everyone has an opinion about it. If it's your own sibling, then it's like nahi nahi beta kar lo bhaiya bach jayenge, didi bach jayegi kind of a thing. But you will not do it for someone you do not know. So this is also crucial that you are not to back out. If you have even an inkling that it's going to be difficult for me to convince everyone around me, don't do it. Don't register, because it's worst to promise hope and then snatch it away from the person when they are in dire need of it. When someone is dying and then they are told that we found a match, and then the match says, I'm sorry, but I'm caught up with something else, or I have my own issues to deal with, and I'm sorry, I can't save your life, go find someone else. It's the worst way to break the human spirit. So this is also something that we insist upon. If you can't commit, don't do it. So yes, that's also a thing that is important, very important.
Yes. Yeah, it's better to not have hope than to have a ray of hope and then suddenly
Yeah,
smash, like you said.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's I don't know, some way you're just robbing a person of all the hope that they have hung on to. uh, like, just take my case for example. I couldn't find any match donor in India. I'm the only child. My parents were only half a match. So if there are like 10 parameters, I had 5 parameters that matched with my dad, another 5 parameters that matched with my mom. Now 5 out of 10 is not, I mean, think of it as a test. अगर तुमको 10 में से 5 आते हैं, so it's not like you're going to go home with that test result and your parents are going to be like, shabash beta, tum 50% leke aaye. Okay, they are going to probably just go like, what the hell is this, haven't you studied enough for the test? Who gets 50%? So think of it like that. You cannot go ahead with a 5 out of 10. So we thought, okay, let's go for a better match donor. I couldn't find anybody in India. Then we said, okay, fine, let's look for somebody in Asia, which is the largest continent in the world. Could not find one individual in Asia, okay, who matched with me. And then, we had also sent my details at DKMS, and DKMS finds its home in Germany. So DKMS India also was actively looking for me. DKMS couldn't find a match donor for me in India as well, and not even in Asia. So DKMS said, okay, fine, we'll send your details to Germany. Before that, they actually called up my dad and they said that, well, we are not able to find anyone in India for you. Do you mind? Are you now open to say Europe first? So then our next best option was Europe. Okay. अगर यूरोप में भी नहीं होता, then my last option was the States. Now all you have to understand is the moment my file travels from one country to a continent, to a different continent, the price goes up. Okay, so we have to constantly, also there's this mental pressure of, okay, yeah, I have these many funds, I can manage this much. Went to Europe and there was only one match donor. Okay, my donor. And it was a 9 out of 10. So it was not a perfect match, but it was a near perfect match. Now imagine if my donor, Eileen, her name is Eileen, imagine if Eileen had said, no, I'm sorry, I'm caught up with other things, I can't do it. I guarantee you, and I'm on record, I would have died. There is no other way to put it. I was thinking, I would have died. I mean, for how long am I going to take chemotherapy to survive? Okay, and I have seen cases, I've mentioned about one crucial case in my TEDx talk, where the said person actually passed away waiting for a donor. So there are people who have actually lost their lives waiting for a donor, and that's where my problem is. That's what makes me extremely uncomfortable. Uh, it's okay if it's not okay. That's I'm sorry, that's the wrong phrase to use. But I think I can digest the fact if someone passes away because the treatment is that atrocious, or is that painful, or that your body is not able to take it after a point in time. I think I can digest that because the treatment is really crucial. And I have had my moments when I thought, okay, I think this is it. I can't, if there is one more chemotherapy that is administered, to me, I don't think I'm going to make it. So I get that. What I don't get is people losing their lives because we are not able to, our society, our community is not able to generate enough options to save their lives. That's where my problem is. How can someone die waiting for a savior? वो मुझे हजम ही नहीं हो रहा है. That's why I just have to get the Marrow story rolling. I just had to do it. I mean, I don't know. This was just my duty. Maybe if I didn't do it, it would be like, kya waste hai? What's the point of having a second chance at life if you are just going to, just be self-indulged? It's just wrong. So that.
Yes. So, like you said earlier, I thought it was only in India that you couldn't find a donor. So, I think it's a global thing that there are less marrow donors out there.
No, not really, not really. So so say for example, and I'm not. This is not racist at all. I'm mentioning colors just in order to give you context. Okay, so chances of a white person trying to find a matched donor in the world are 50%, which is a great percent to have. Okay, now when this comes to Indian and other ethnic groups, I believe so for Africans as well, this percent is 10% or less. So the problem is that there aren't enough representatives for marrow donation within other ethnic groups. That's where the problem is. So even if we can amp up this 10% or less to say 20%, which to me right now is bloody encouraging. Okay. So there are so many cases that we can solve. And let's not kid ourselves. As far as I have understood, within my limited knowledge about cancer in India, it now affects it's like every fourth house has somebody. Gone are those days when people would say, okay, this person has cancer, and we'd go like, oh my God, what is cancer and what's happening? Now literally, if you tell anyone that so and so person in my family has been diagnosed with breast cancer, or so and so person has been diagnosed with blood cancer, or whatever it is, there is definitely going to be some second or third person who's going to say, oh, my aunt also had it, or my best friend had it, or someone at my school had it, or my classmate had it, or my colleague had it. It's that common. Everyone happens to know somebody within their social group who had cancer, who's either passed away or has survived or is under treatment. It's that common. Okay, so I think that should be enough to escalate the matter in terms of, this is an emergency. This is um, this is epidemic that has been running. And let's not kid ourselves. This is something that I also put up on my Marrow Stories page. In the near future, I'm not saying tomorrow, let's hope tomorrow, but in the near future, we will definitely be able to find a vaccine for COVID-19. It will take time. Everyone's working extremely hard to get over it. We will find a vaccine. But cancer is here to stay. It's not going. COVID may go away eventually. Okay, its impact may reduce. Eventually, we may be able to find something for it. Yes, we are. Our times are going to go down in history. A decade later, someone's going to say, "Okay, a decade ago, sorry, not a decade, maybe a century ago, this happened." But we are going to get out of it. But I cannot say that with this confidence for cancer. So it's going to be here, and that is also important. And I think I shot a short video for some other organization about this. What is happening to people who are with cancer in the midst of COVID? Because that's also there, na? As a person who is with cancer and who is, taking chemotherapy, what are my chances? Is it safe for me to travel to the hospital and enter the hospital and actually take chemotherapy in the midst of COVID? And if I don't take therapy, how long am I going to survive without it? Too many questions that we have no answers to. I interviewed also people with thalassemia, which is also a big chunk of my Marrow story. And these people actually told me that they have to take blood transfusion every month. And they said, we cannot tell you the number of times it has been cancelled or postponed by the hospital authorities because of COVID. Every time they go in there, they have to take the COVID test. And if वो negative hai, only then they can take a blood transfusion. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know if they have to pay for it every time, but if they have to, then oh my God, it's just not fair. So, there's too much happening, and we don't have enough provisions to address all of these issues.
Yeah, cancer still baffles doctors and scientists all around the world.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of
so long and
progress.
still.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot of progress. I will not deny that. But again, like it makes me extremely uncomfortable, and I'm going to keep saying this because so I belong to Ahmedabad, right? I've born. I won't say born, but at least you can say as close as born and brought up to in Ahmedabad. I've lived all my life in Ahmedabad, and very very recently, I have seen these kick-ass kind of big 7-star quality hospitals that have mushroomed in my city in Ahmedabad, okay? And all of these have a BMT center. All of these. They have the best doctors, they have the best teams, they have coordinated with the best doctors placed internationally, everything. And these are high-end hospitals. But what makes me really uncomfortable? What makes me uncomfortable is the fact that there are these many cancer hospitals that have started mushrooming out in my city, which is indicative of the fact that there are these many cancer cases, which is indicative of the fact that these many people need a bone marrow transplant. Okay, so why are you going to build these many hospitals? You will only build it if there is a demand. Either there is a demand and there is no supply, which is the only possibility in medicine. You cannot be saying, I'm creating a demand. ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि कल जाके कोई बोलेगा हाँ मुझे भी bone marrow transplant दे दो. ऐसा तो नहीं होता है. Okay, so that's the thing. So it's a bit that, yeah, so many hospitals have come up. Yeah, I hear it on over the radio that okay, this hospital gives the best cancer treatment.
Yeah, so when I started reading about this, I thought it's only about the medical problems or the technical issues. But when it comes to marrow, I think there are a lot more than that. It goes beyond just financial or technical, like we talked over this course. So to sum it all up, what are the few points, what are the few things that you would like to see implemented when it comes to this in the future in our country or just generally?
I can't really say for implemented because I don't think I have that kind of intellectual capacity or enough knowledge to talk about implementation. But what I can state are a couple of points that can really bust some myths around bone marrow transplant, if you may allow me to do so. So, the first one, thank you. So the first one is bone marrow transplant is not a surgery. I think that's very important. The second is, or rather, I may say, stem cell donation is not a surgery. Okay, stem cell donation is extremely similar to your blood donation. Okay, it just has a slightly different procedure, but it's exactly similar when it comes to donating. It's similar to blood donation. The third one is, if you are between the age group of 18 to 55, please register. If you are watching this video, if you feel that if you're one of those who really wants to do something for the society but doesn't know how to start, begin from here. Just register as a marrow donor. Given COVID, if all you have to do is you can go on to Datri's website. You can also go on to DKMS's website and other bone marrow registries. There are many, but I mean, Datri is something that I'm not only saying it because I'm associated with them. I'm also saying it because I have worked with the marrow registration process with them, and it's quite easy. Which is why, given COVID, you may not be in a position to actually go to their offices and register. In that case, you can actually order a kit for home delivery, and they will send it home with a list of instructions. All you have to do is take it and swab it and seal it back and give it to them. So that is possible. You can call them. They are some of the kindest people there, I know, and they will help you with it. So register if you can. Talk about cancer. And most importantly, call it cancer. Don't call it that thing. Don't call it the monster. Don't call it the disease. Don't call it that idiotic thing. Don't call it the problem. Call it cancer. When you address the enemy by its name, it reduces its power. Cancer is not like Voldemort, he who must not be named. I mean, it's not like if you name cancer, it's going to increase its power. Call it cancer. I think that's essentially important. Read, and I'm not saying read because someone around you could get cancer. No, it's nothing like that. Read because you need to educate yourself about it. You don't need to get into the dynamics of, oh my God, this is ye to mujhe dar lag raha hai. No, don't expose yourself to things that make you uncomfortable or you feel scared. But read enough to maybe speak to somebody who is with the disease. I think the one issue that at least my friends faced initially, and some of my family members did also, is, okay, how do we talk to her? What do we tell her? And I think that is something that maybe most of us have struggled with, that you don't know what to say to the person the moment you know that this person has been diagnosed. And you know um, uh, you- even if you know somebody, like for example, if I have cancer, that doesn't mean that you can't talk to me about anything else. You talk to me about what's happening in your life. Talk to me about funny things. Talk to me about general stuff. It doesn't mean that because I have cancer I am necessarily dying. You don't have to talk to me about how I'm feeling or all of that. As someone who has survived cancer, I think during the course of my treatment, I craved for normal conversations. So we are still normal people. Having cancer doesn't make us an alien. So I think one of the purposes is also, I never, and I've said this at all conferences and talks I've been invited to, I never advise cancer patients on on what to do. When you're thrown into the sea, whether you know how to swim or not, you are still going to flap your hands and legs because you want to survive. So you don't need to teach people how to survive cancer. But definitely, as a cancer survivor, I can tell the society how to. So I think for me, it's much more important to build a humane society around somebody who is struggling with the disease. I think it's important to educate the people who have never been with cancer. instead of telling people who have been with cancer or who are with cancer कि तुमको क्या करना चाहिए. I think they know their A to Z. It's the other people who need to. So that thing, don't go like, oh my God, now what's going to happen to you? I mean, even that's the question that even we have for ourselves throughout the treatment. Kya hoga, ab kya hoga? So we don't want to hear that out loud. Just talk about normal things. Don't apologize. Don't feel guilty about things. I think the more you do it, the better. So yeah, these are a couple of pointers to keep in mind. Don't see a son and a daughter as different. Please, this is to all parents who are maybe subconsciously doing it without realizing it. Please don't do it. This is for the society. This is for everyone who does this. Please don't do it. Please don't save your daughter because she happens to be the only child, or your son because he happens to be the only child. Please don't do that. Don't begin to this has also happened, and I've seen it, that in 25% of the cases, siblings are a match. So if a daughter needs a bone marrow, and if the son happens to be a complete match, for some reason, parents will put the son on the pedestal that, oh, he happened to save her. So suddenly he becomes this god, this favorite child, But I have not seen the same attitude for the daughter. With the daughter, is like it's her duty to save her brother, and I'm only speaking from the brother sister perspective. Sister is different, brother is different. But I've seen this with my naked eye. Like, the person was sitting right next to me, and I've seen it. So don't do that. Yeah, that's all I can say. I mean, I'm not a parent, so uh, I cannot actually say that, oh, how should you treat your children. No, not saying that, but just don't discriminate. Everyone deserves the right to live.
Yeah, so cancer is not the only elephant in the room. There are a lot of other things that have to be addressed along with it. So yes, it has been
Absolutely.
Yeah, it has been very insightful talking to you, getting your perspective of things. We've been through this and been beyond that, reaching out to people who are in need of it. So I hope to connect with you again over this again, because there are a lot to talk about. It's just not just one dimension. There are a lot of other, like we said, like we are keeping on saying over and over again, like a lot of other dimensions to this. And yeah, it's a long way to where we want to get to. Like, the cancer-free society is very hypothetical when I say about it now, but hopefully someday, yeah.
Yeah, even if not cancer free, I think physically you may not be able to get there, because cancer is going to take its own time to go away. But if there is a mentally cancer free society, in terms of cancer is not a taboo, in terms of it's okay, let's just treat it like another disease. It's okay, let's talk about it. It's okay, let's reach out to the person. Let's see how we can help them. Let's talk to them. Let's normalize this. To me, that is a cancer free society. Because the moment you start treating a disease like that, the way we treat common flu and cold, that's when we will win over cancer. Mental strength does play an important role. I don't deny it. But if everyone around me is constantly going to poke me, or is constantly going to make me feel uncomfortable about my situation, there's only so much that my mental strength can do to keep me going. I will have a break point sooner than later.
Yeah.
So that's where the society can step in.
Yes, it's a teamwork when it comes to it. Not
always. Yeah. Always.
Everyone coming together, joining hands, and
Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Steffi, for joining us in this wonderful talk. And on behalf of ZenOnco.io and Love is Cancer, we wish you a good day ahead. And
thank you. I wish you a good evening and a good weekend ahead. And this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this platform. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this conversation, because somewhere I think if we are to build a society for cancer, then all of us need to join hands. Marrow Stories, ZenOnco, other organizations that we can reach out to, because at the end of the day, all of us are working together to address the same problem, whether it is the disease or the mentality associated with the disease. So maybe you are addressing the disease and I'm trying to address the mentality, but it is still walking together. So thank you for joining hands with me. Thank you for helping me deliver my message. I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much.